thank you to everyone for showing up and taking the time. And thank you for our partner, Global Startups, for this invitation to share with you our 30 years of experience on unlocking opportunities for grants and tax credits. So feel free to ask your questions as we go along. And at the end, we have a Q&A session. And if you have more in-depth question, we'll be happy on an individual basis to sit with you and have this conversation afterwards. So just to add some interactivity and fun, we're going to have a few polls throughout the presentation so that you stay tuned. So of course, it will allow us by these questions to adjust the content according to your knowledge. Even though the slides are prepared and fixed, we can adjust the comments around them and the speed we go through some slides depending on how much you know about grants and tax credits. It's one way also to improve your attention because just listening is one thing, but talking, participating, thinking, being challenged is one way to keep you fresh, awake, and from falling asleep. So first one, who has already claimed or tried to claim grants? So just in the chat, just say me, just say yes or no if you have claimed or tried to claim grants. It doesn't mean you were successful, but you tried. So please say yes or no in the chat, and Sam will compile and tell us the results. Let's give ourselves maybe a few seconds to do that. Are you starting to see some results, Sam?
Yes, and so far it's full of no. So nobody has any experience. Oh, okay. So I have one person who said that they've tried to claim grants, but not in Canada. They've tried in Italy.
Okay.
And everybody else is saying no.
Okay, good. So then the second question will be for only one person. Were you successful or not in claiming this grant? Even if it's not in Canada, it was in Italy. Were you successful or not? So what is the answer?
I don't have one yet.
For the other ones, get ready. Well, okay. For those who claim on a scale of 1 to 10, going from easiest to hardest, how would you rate how hard it was? And indeed, free money is amazing, but at the same time, it is a bit hard for many reasons that you will explain. So if it was easy, everybody would do it, and there would not be enough money in the governments to answer all the wishes and dreams of people to get free money.
So the person who said that they've tried to claim in Italy said they haven't received a reply yet.
Okay, it's
Um,
recent. Okay.
yeah, and they say on a scale of 1 to 10, it was a medium
Okay.
5.
Okay. So hopefully with this presentation, we will decrease the threshold and make it easier. So first question on the agenda is, who are these guys? We have to explain a little bit who we are, just so that you know that you're listening to experts or not. And then the grants ecosystem in Canada is the topic of this presentation. We'll go through different types of non-dilutive financing. And if you don't know that expression, we will explain it. Availability of grants, categories of grants, precautions and preparations for grants with our recommendations. And then the project is key. This is one of the key recommendations. And then we will share our magical wand for grants. So we have to stay up to that point, at least, of the presentation. You cannot quit before. And then a few words about the SR&ED tax credit program, because it's big. It's big compared with all these grants. And a Q&A period. If you want, the presentation will be available in PowerPoint at a request, and the video will be available on our website, our YouTube channel, and maybe Global Startup can tell us at the end where it is available in their own materials or website. So as for myself, first, there's only one slide per speaker and only one slide about the company. It's not a pitch. We're not selling our services directly, but the focus is to provide you with valuable, free, and actionable information so that you can do it on your own. You don't need us. You don't need anyone. Or if you need some help, you can look for help in the market. So I'm the CEO of Emergex SR&ED Consultant. I founded Emergex in 1994, so I was still in the kindergarten when I did that. I have a bachelor's in computer science from Université de Montreal, which explains the strong focus of our services in the field of IT and software. 30 years of experience in the IT industry and a certificate in project management from the international organization. And what is most relevant to specifically the business of doing tax credits and grants is the membership to the Fiscal and Financial Planning Association. Feel free, please, to connect with me. I love to get in touch with people. And then next step is for our colleague Victor to take over part of the presentation.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Hi everyone, and thank you for your time, and thank you to Global Startup for inviting us, sharing our experience today. So my name is Victor Allard. I'm financial coordinator at Emergex. So I have an MBA in wealth management, bachelor's in economic and banking. And after 8 years of experience in wealth management, I have no more than 3 years of experience in claiming SR&ED tax credit and grants. You can also add me on LinkedIn with the link or with my name. About Emergex, so we are a firm of experts in claiming SR&ED tax credit and other government aids. We have experienced professionals specialized by industry in software, IT, AI, blockchain, also robotics, manufacturing, industrial, medical devices, life science. We have like 5 PhD who can help our clients to claim tax credit or grants. So we can claim a lot of different kind of projects. Our team claimed more than thousands projects over the last 25 years with an historical success rate of 98%. Why it's not 100%? Because sometimes the claims are audited by CRA, so they cut a little bit, but 98% is not too bad. So we are result-based, so it means that our clients pay only a percentage of the financing that they actually received. So that's it. We encourage you to buy Canadian and even more with the US tariffs. Okay, about the grants ecosystem in Canada. So there are between 3,000 and 5,000 different grants in Canada. They can come from the federal government, also the provincial government, and local organization like association or non-profit company. So there are lots of grants, and we will help you to choose the good ones. First, do we say grants or subsidies? So that's the question. We will give you the name of a few non-dilutive financing. So you have grants, which is non-repayable financial assistance. So basically you receive money and you don't have to refund it. Then you have the tax credits, which can be refundable or non-refundable. The difference is non-refundable tax credits means that the tax credits can only be used to pay your taxes. If your tax credits exceeds your taxes, you won't receive the money. You can use it the following years to pay your taxes. And refundable tax credits means that if the tax credit exceeds your taxes, you will receive the rest on your bank account. For example, SR&ED tax credits, which is a famous program in Canada, it's refundable tax credits. Then you have different kind of loan. You have loan guarantee. It's loan from financial institution with a percentage guaranteed by a government organization. You also have interest-free or low-interest loan, which can be very interesting to finance your project, and loan with conditional repayment that become a kind of grant. And you have dilutive financing, like venture capital. So it means that it's investment in your company, but in exchange of a percentage of the shares. So that's it. So there are a lot of categories of grants. We will talk about 5 main categories of project or investments. So first, you have grants in job creation for salaries, internships, training, and human resources. So you receive the money to help you to pay the salary of your employers. Then you have grants in exportation for the marketing, sales, and international expansion. But not only international, you also have interprovincial expansion if you want to expand in the other area of Canada. You have grants in innovation, of course, for technology projects, patents, and artificial intelligence, for example. You also have grants in digital transformation. It became very famous during the pandemic for the adoption of new technologies, automation, and also, for example, implementation of AI. And you have grants for immobilization, helping you for the purchase of machinery, equipment, land, construction, expansion of warehouses, and manufacturing plants. So this is a small selection of programs, non-exhaustive, of course. Pierre will tell you and show you later how to search for the thousand of grants that exist. For example, for wages and internship, you have youth employment program from IRAP, Accelerate Entrepreneur from MITAX to hire STEM graduates. You also have Nova Science. It's from Quebec, for example, but for Nova Science, you receive half of the salary of one employee, a young graduate. Maximum $30,000 you receive for 1 year, so it can help you to hire younger developer, for example. For the exportation, you have the very famous Can Export, helping you to export out of Canada. It's a program from the federal government. You can receive 50% of your expenses and maximum $50,000. You have the same program in Quebec, the PSCE, where you can receive $100,000. For the digital transformation, for example, from the federal, you have the Canada Digital Adoption Program. And for innovation, the very famous IRAP, Financial Support for Technological Innovation, where you can receive more than $100,000 for your projects. So yes, as I told you before, Pierre will show you how to search for this kind of grants a little bit later. Opportunities versus challenges. So yes, we will talk about risks and success rates because there is a big difference between tax credits and grants. Because about tax credits, if you have an eligible project and eligible expenses, the government have to give you the money, have to give you the tax credits. But for the grants, it's not the same. Even if you have an eligible project and eligible expenses, you are not sure that you will receive the money because grants are subject to limited budgets and fierce competition. The grant acceptance rate can be less than 50% or even 25% as demand exceeds available funds. I have the example of CanExport. Last year, the success rate was around 20%. So yes, it was hard to get these grants. Also, you have to spend the money first and then ask for the refund. So that's a risk that you have to take for the grants. There are evolving and discretionary eligibility criteria that makes it difficult to anticipate, because even for the same program, years after years, the criteria can change. So you cannot say, "Oh, I know this program, I can prepare it in advance." No, you have to wait and to be sure that the criteria are the same. There are random opening periods, means that you are not sure. Like, for example, every April this program opens, so I can be prepared. No, for example, for the PSC, it's the exportation program in Quebec. After it was closed during 2 years, and when it opened last year in January, it was open for only 2 weeks. So it was very hard, like, to get this grant, and need to be ready. Also, for some grants, you need to pre-qualify first before to know the criteria. So it's the same, you cannot anticipate. So our recommendation is that it's important to plan ahead, to choose the right opportunities, and prepare your claim carefully. About precaution and preparation, the main advice that we can give you is that your project is the key. I say it because a lot of companies start the process by searching grants and then try to adapt their project to the grants. But we advise you to do the
Can
opposite.
you go? Yes.
We advise you to do the opposite, to start with your project and then find the best available grants. Because, as I told you before, grants are awarded on the basis of solid, well-defined, and highly detailed projects. So you better analyze your project, its technology, its costs, its deployment schedules, to find the best opportunities. There are some typical criteria that can make your project interesting. For example, your business sector. Obviously, if you are in the AI industry, it will be easier to find grants because governments like to invest in this sector. Also, the stage of the business life cycle. If you are in the acceleration stage, it will be easier to find some grants. Also, the number of employees. Some grants are for small companies. Some grants are for biggest companies. So that's an important criteria. The number of years in operation. For example, if you are young entrepreneurs. Also, the location of your business. Sometimes the government want to invest in some location. What is in your business plan? Your financial situation, of course, is important and can make your project more interesting, and also the presence of other claims for grants. So, Pierre, I will let you continue.
So the idea is, if you're looking for grants, the first question people ask is, there's so many grants. Where do I start? Which is the best grant for me? So the wealth and the variety of grants is indeed a source of confusion. You can pay for services to search for grants, but there's actually a free resource, and it's a very complete resource because it comes from the government. So the government itself realized that that was a common problem: too much variety of grants and how to find them. So you don't have to pay, because you can look on this site from Industry Canada, and the simple way to access it is in Google. If you type Business Finders Benefit, it will go directly to that page. And once it's a database, but once you answer a few questions, you will be able to narrow down the grants, and also see the details and the criteria, see if it's open, see what the budgets, if they're available or not. So instead of talking about it, I'm going to go on the website and show you exactly how it works, so you have a good feel for that. So let me try to share again my screen. Hopefully I have a bit more luck this time. So do you see the page?
Yes.
The web page from Government of
Good.
Canada?
Yep.
Excellent. So what I did is I opened up a whole series of tabs. Thank you. So this way we can quickly go without delays, without waiting for the page to load and so on. So if you search for business benefits finder, you find the different references. The first one is paid. So surprisingly, the government pays to promote the site while everybody wants this free site. It's a bit, in my mind, useless. So please do not waste taxpayers' money by clicking on the sponsored link. Go directly to the organic link below here. It doesn't pay, doesn't cost to the government, doesn't cost to the taxpayer. So Business Benefits Finder will bring you to this page where you have to respect the two official laws of Canada, French and English. I'm sorry, no Spanish, at least yet, to select. So let's go into English. What we have is this page from Industrie Canada. It's going to ask a few questions, and I'm going through a case study or a typical case, which I think, based on our study of the cohort, your fields of business and your maturity stage, I should be able to have something which is fairly general and appropriate to your situation. So let's say you are looking for what? That could be grants and funding, which is free money. But then loans and capital investment. Loans are interesting because people say, oh, I don't want money lent, I just want grants. But loans are interesting because interest-free loans may be bigger amounts of money. And the interest is a big chunk. So we had clients for which, when we calculated what they would save in interest on loans of $1 million, we had like $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in interest saved over a period of like 5 to 10 years. Well, of course, tax credits, wage subsidies, and interns. Salary subsidies is always popular. The government wants to create jobs, but also you have more than money. You have expert advice you can get from the NRC, for example, will give you advice for R&D project. You also have partnership and collaboration and researchers and facilities. So if you do something that requires a lab, you don't have to invest in this infrastructure while you can rent it from the government. So a very interesting resource. I'm going to select only one, which is grants and funding. I know you want free money, so we'll do that. Now, this is grants for your business, more specifically. And we can think of, this is small business, this is probably your size. Then we have for larger organization or larger grants. So let's say in your case, you would probably look at something you target for up to $250 million, I guess. And your main goal is 2. And then again, you have a whole selection of possibilities. So the government is ready to do many things, but if you look at it, you will see the same type of needs that Victor has identified, like buy or lease equipment or property, grow your business, sell internationally, hire employees, increase working capital, productivity, reduce pollution and improve energy efficiency, develop the local economy, and then sell, close, or transfer a business. What we're going to take as an example is to conduct R&D, innovate, develop a product or service. Now, tell us a little bit more about your project. So I've got plans in the, so let's say again, your typical profile in the cohort might be more like software and information technology. Let's select that. And you are at which stage? You may not be at the stage of research or startup. So it's more like the development stage, the development of a product, a technology, or also the development of your sales. So let's look at the next step. Now, tell us about your company and organization. So we are in, well, let's select where you are now, Toronto, Ontario Southern. And what is your business? Your business is in the field, let's say, of information technology, but more specifically, and you see you could have into artificial intelligence, computer system design, internet, software, video game, not sure. And so let's take artificial intelligence, which is a field where the government wants Canada to be not too far of the pack in terms of leading the world behind some other countries. So let's see the results. So we have our selection of 40 grants and funding. But if you look below, there are other suggestions. The box is not opened, but these are a series of different other grants and services that are provided. So in the case of grants and funding, let's open the box for the 40 funding. Now I'll go through a few examples, and that will tell you again, according to our presentation, of the type of grants that the government is interested to finance. So some things are specific like this, funding for autonomous vehicles and smart mobility. This is rather narrow, and not everybody has the ability to do autonomous vehicles. Some others are pretty broad, like funding for international collaboration, research, and innovation. But the focus often from the government's point of view is partnerships and collaboration. Some things are specific here too, like how to, this is like low tech, like manufacturing and warehouses. And then AI is the way to optimize and automate the production line. So funding to enhance supply chains with AI. Some are very much broader, like financial support for technology innovation. No surprise, because this is the IRAP. IRAP is the Industrial Research Assistance Program. And this is like the little brother of SR&ED. So SR&ED is the big program, a few $billions, but I'll let you guess. You may think right now, how many billions of dollars the government has invested in the SR&ED tax credit program, but IRAP is the little brother. So same type of criteria, and they can work nicely together. So let's take a look at one specific. Now you see indigenous businesses. Again, this is a special case where groups are targeted very specifically. Then other great lines, directions that the government wants to take: fuel, cleaner transportation and fuel projects, and then again, also it targets regions and communities. So it's pretty narrow, as you can see, a combination of both. And that gives you maybe the chance, if you qualify to these two limiting criteria, it increases a lot your chance to get the grant, which is where it's interesting to start first with the project identification, and then you try to see how you fit. So let's take an example, like financing for artificial intelligence in Southern Ontario. Pretty general, I guess. And we have some information. Whoops, what's happening? Oh, not currently accepting applications. Interesting example. As we said, indeed, well, of course, that was arranged. I selected that for that purpose of giving you additional explanation. So they're not accepting applications now. So you want to be up to date, check often to know when it's opening. Now, what's interesting with this database is you can actually click the star and actually be informed when the program is accepting application. You will receive an email. So it's very interesting as a way to follow up on these programs. Now you have a brief summary of how you can qualify. So what it says, it is for small and medium-sized enterprises, and it's normally repayable. So this is more like a loan, but normally means that in some circumstances, you may qualify for not repaying the loan, which is basically a grant. And now it is focused on the productization and or commercialization of AI and AI-driven solutions. Now, we have a big focus on innovation and R&D, but this is the beginning. The end is actually selling technology and products. So this is very interesting. In the case of this program, it takes care of the part which is often neglected by governments, which is how you market and sell your software and solutions. So let's take a look to finalize the whole trip. Let's take a look at the page for this program. So we're still from the Government of Canada's point of view. there is agencies at the federal for regions. So Canada has, so Ontario has one agency specifically for them. Quebec has one. The Maritimes have another one. The Western provinces have one too as well. So these programs are specific to the region, even though it's a federal program. This program is not available in Quebec, not available in the West. Every region has its own selection of programs. So just to make things a bit more confusing and complex. So we have the Regional Artificial Intelligence Initiative, and then I mentioned productization and commercialization. Now, Pillar 1, this is typical that you have different steps or different parts of in a grants. They have a great idea. They want to promote something, but different companies need different types of help at different stages. So they have like part 1, part 2, part 3. This is fairly common from governments. And that's it. And then you have some explanations. I'm not going to get through. And then in that case, what helps to qualify for the grant is interesting to know this. This is something like in our case, for example, as expert in claiming grants and tax credits, we know these things about what is it that the government officials like to see in a company. So in that case, you have to start selling. You have to be selling already. It doesn't have to be of product or technology. And you have to have some on the previous instance. So
Your sound isn't stable right now.
okay, let me check that. Okay, do you still hear me? I'm going to check if I can still be heard. Do you still
It's
hear
on and
me?
off. Okay, now it's good.
Now, okay, good. Excellent.
Yeah.
I was like switching from AirPod to AirPod. And that's it for this one. Okay, so let me go back. You see my screen?
Yeah.
Do you? Yes, excellent. So we went through that. This is an example of such a search that I did before. You see at the bottom, we specify even the number of employees, like 12, and specific revenues. Okay. Now, what is the difference between tax credit and grants? So if you look in the past, this is tax credits based on past expenses. And tax credits are claimed after the end of your financial fiscal year. The big advantage, or many of the big advantages so they all have advantages and pros and cons. For tax credits, when the financial year is done, you know exactly what the past, how it went. So you actually discovered what obstacles you met and what uncertainties you met, and you know which supplier you selected, which subcontractor you hired. And so the details are fairly easy to compile and to present as part of your tax return. On the other hand, in the case of grants, you're looking to the future, which means it requires planning before activities begin. Now, if you ask for a grant for an innovation and you have to identify what is the uncertainty that you will meet, well, it's an uncertainty. You don't know if you're going to meet it and how you're going to meet it. Maybe. In that case, it's you kind of make a guess, you make a plan, and you will see in due time if it happens the way you planned it. So it requires more planning because you're less reactive, but more like proactive. So you therefore have to choose the best financing strategy for your specific situation. But you can also claim both at the same time. So a good combination for us is you start with grants for a future project and you try to get the maximum. But when the financial year ends, then you look at the past and you sweep everything that you missed in the grant and you put that in tax credits. You can basically combine grants and tax credits also, but there's like a rule where if you claim a grant, well, you have to subtract the grant you receive from your tax credit. So it cannot be just a sum. You cannot double dip and have grants and tax credit on the same dollar without some conditions to be met. So you claim tax credits, you subtract the grants from your tax credit, and you have like one cannibalizes partly the other one. We have to be aware of that. Now, other poll about the SR&ED program. Who among you has already claimed SR&ED tax credits? Answer yes or no. We should have a little music here.
Okay, so one person
many
says
answers?
yes,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody else says no.
Wow, interesting, amazing. Okay, so there's a lot more. So this is an invitation then to the next webinar we will give, hopefully with global startups if they invite us, because we can say a lot more about SR&ED, of course, because this is our number one expertise. Now I have just a few slides for this presentation today. The second question of the poll here is, how many dollars in R&D tax credits are distributed to companies in Canada every year? So reply with a number. Say if it's 1 billion, 2, 10, 50. So even though you did not claim, you have the right to guess. You must guess. And just to have a sense of what you think about the amount of money. So what kind of answer are we getting?
I'm getting answers 1 billion, 2 billions, 5, 12, 20, 6.8. Okay, that's a very specific one.
Good.
4.
That's it? Okay, good. So the answer is coming soon. So first, what is SR&ED? It is the scientific research, you see the letter underlined, and experimental development. So it is SR&ED, and this is how it should be pronounced logically. But all the people in the industry say SR&ED. So why is that? I don't know. But somehow this pronunciation has emerged organically. And SR&ED is like the debris coming out of a shredder, this machine. So the way you can distinguish somebody who knows about SR&ED or not is indeed how they pronounce it. If you meet somebody who says, oh yes, we've been claiming SR&ED for many years, you know it's a lie because they don't even know how to pronounce it. In the same way, if you want to show off in a cocktail with your friends, you can say, oh yes, we've been claiming SR&ED for several years. People will say, oh yes, it's true, he knows about SR&ED. So that joke apart, it is a financial incentive to encourage R&D investment in Canada. By doing that, Canada recognizes that it is lagging among the richest countries. So we actually figure out in the 16th position out of 18 in terms of R&D intensity. Not in terms of dollars, but intensity, because Canada is still a small country, like with 35 million people. But if you compare with these countries of Europe, the US and Japan and China, you see that the percentage of our gross domestic product is low in terms of R&D investment compared to the others. And Canada recognizes that we have to move away from natural resources and go towards high-tech technology companies. Because when you look at the world now, the largest technology companies, they have become all technology companies. If you think about Google, Amazon, Facebook, NVIDIA, Apple, all technology companies. Canada wants to be there instead of being just oil and mining. So the answer is, the beginning of the answer is 4. So 3 is a bit in the past. Last year it was $4 billion per year for 18,000 companies. But that's the part given by the federal government only. Because provinces decide to adopt and follow up with this grant, which is unique. Typically, every government has their own program and they don't talk to each other. Now, SR&ED is special. If you do qualify with the federal program, you automatically can get some additional money from the provinces. And in the case in the case of all provinces, it's probably around $1 and $1.5 billion. And that changes every year. In the case of Quebec, we're talking about $500 million distributed to 5,000 companies. In the case of Ontario, it is 400 millions to 9,000 companies. So you see, there's more companies claiming SR&ED in Ontario. The economy of Ontario is bigger than that of Quebec, but Quebec spends more. So it tells you that, again, Quebec, in the same way as the federal, wants to emphasize and push R&D and technology. Now, SR&ED can be defined, an image and a video is worth 1,000 words. So here's an explanation about what are the 3 SR&ED criteria. To claim SR&ED, every project or your main project or your projects that you claim have to qualify at the same time to 3 criteria. So first, you have to meet an uncertainty or a technological obstacle, like the wall. You search for easy solutions, you search the web, you ask your friends, you ask people that are graduating from universities. So whatever you can find, you use as much as possible just to easily develop and do your R&D. But if you cannot solve it and nobody has the answer, this is where you have an obstacle or an uncertainty, and that signals the beginning of your SR&ED project. So as you start to resolve the uncertainty, you do a first step, an experiment, a prototype, and whoops, you encounter a dead end. This is the first iteration. You see at the bottom, the step, which is experimental activities, is trying to cross the maze. So the second time, you start where you actually, because you had some success, but not completely. So you start where you know you had some success, and then you advance further by doing a second iteration, but you fail again. So you start again, and then you manage to get out of the maze. So you have a success. So this is the advancement. You have increased your knowledge, but you don't have necessarily to succeed. And indeed, the contrary is even better, because if you fail at resolving your uncertainty, you still have an advancement. It's a negative advancement, but it's an advancement of your knowledge. The knowledge that it's not feasible the way you tried to resolve the uncertainty. And that qualifies for SR&ED indeed. So whether you succeed or not is not a question. The question is, do you spend salary and other expenses? That's the test in terms of how much money you can claim. So talking about numbers, on the left, we have the percentage of dollars you receive from some specific expenses. And on the left, it is for Canadian-controlled private corporations. On the right, the rates are much lower because they are for companies that are owned by foreign companies or foreign individuals. So Canada wants to encourage local companies with Canadian owners, of course. So the kind of expenses, and this is the number, these are the numbers for the specific case of Ontario. Every province will have different percentages. So for salaries of expenses that are directly engaged in SR&ED activities, you can claim 66% of the salary. That's a huge chunk. It's 2/3 of the salary devoted to R&D. Other types of expenses are subcontractors. So you pay an individual as a freelancer or a company as a subcontractor. You get 1/3, roughly, of the invoices that you can claim for the parts that is R&D eligible. But also, if you, in some industries, you buy materials, you modify it, you transform it, and you try to see if the result is working as your final product, but you may do a lot of experiments and prototyping. And when you do that, the material that you input in the process is destroyed at the end. And this is where you can get 42% of this material refunded. Now, time to the question and answers.
I have a comment in the chat that I think we should take a few seconds to address. So, Andres says that based on their experience, shred is complicated and exhausting due to the paperwork involved and the technical write-ups. They said they've worked with Leighton on it and that they take between 7,500 and 12K depending on the size of the claim. They also correctly say that the final shred paperwork gets sent to the accountant, so it is in fact best to file it with your uh, claim, with your tax claim at the end of the year. That is correct. Is there anything we want to say about that?
Yes. So indeed, it has to be filed with your tax return. So your accountant is the one that will, or actually your shred consultant is best positioned to fill out the form that is called T661. It is a form specific to shred in your tax return. And that is better filled by your shred consultant because they know exactly how to do it, while the accountant knows approximately how to do it. And I've seen often accountants, they don't fill all the boxes. If you don't fill all the boxes, even though they're optional, it raises a flag with CRA and they want to see you and audit you and ask questions and contest your content, your expenses. You don't want that. You want your claim when you file it to go directly to the emission of a check and avoid a lengthy process of auditing, which often results in cuts in your claim. Now, the the process that you explained, which is tedious, I would ask, did you have to write the description?
Mm.
If you did that, it's not your job. It's the job of the consultant. What you're supposed to do and what we tell our clients is you should expect probably 10 hours maximum of the time of your CTO to explain verbally and provide some documents what is the uncertainty met, the experimental activities that were done, by what time, which people, and so on. So 10 hours is like typically 1 or 2 projects. And we can even do it as quickly as 5, and that's it. The documents you have to prepare, there's no specific document to prepare. You basically focus on what you have to do a good R&D. So to be professional in doing R&D inside your company, you have to have project management, you have to have specs, you probably have to have timesheets or some sort of follow-ups. You probably have whiteboards that you filled out of information. So you take this existing information as it is, you take a picture of the whiteboard when you plan with your team about your R&D, and you send that to us, and we'll take care with the interview, verbal interview, we'll take care of collecting all that and making the text which is appropriate to your R&D and following the rules of the program. So the time should be 5 to 10 hours from your CTO, and your financial person should provide some information like salaries and timesheet, which is probably 1 or 2 hours of that time. And that's it. So I often tell people who do not like shred because it's like, oh my God, I hate this. I'm supposed to focus on programming and I'm supposed to do paperwork for my company. I hate it. Well, you have to reason with your CTO or reason with yourself if you're involved in the process, is that for 10 hours or 5 hours, you can claim $200,000, $500,000. This is $10,000 per hour of your CTO. This is the most well-paying job that he's going to do in the year or in his life. So it's just a matter of mental discipline to accept that you spent a little bit of time and you're going to get a big result. But this is where also a good shred consultant can help, so that indeed, instead of taking 100 hours of the time of your CTO, of yourself, it takes like more like 10, 5, 15.
Okay. Does
that answer the question?
I think so. We also have Fernando who asks if computer resources or AI APIs are considered material for shred or for other grants.
So normally I should be out of the presentation, right?
You are, yes.
Okay. So now we should see our faces. Good. So sorry again, what is the question?
The question is, are computer resources or AI APIs considered materials for SR&ED or other grants?
So materials are really physical materials. So when you talk about APIs, it's definitely not consumed material. Now, things like if you have to buy space, cloud space in Amazon Web Services, this is not an eligible expense. If you talk about an API, well, if you pay for it, it's one thing. But if you work at building a connector with this API, then the whole question is it SR&ED? And we go back to the three questions. What I can tell you is often I've seen that connecting with an API is an eligible SR&ED project for many reasons. One may be that the documented API was not behaving the way it was supposed to, or that what you want to get out of this connected product through the API, you want it to do more than what it is designed for. So as you surmount and try to go beyond the specs, this is potentially another good example of a SR&ED project. Again, does that answer the question?
Yes,
I
thank you.
hope,
Yeah.
yes. We also have Tiago who has a question.
Hi. Unfortunately, my camera is not working, but can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I have actually two questions. The first one is talking about grants. When we have like the future, we see that we have like multiple grants available that maybe can fit my project, for example. Is that okay if I apply for more than one grant, or this is going to be an issue if I see that it fits to my project? That's the first question. The second question. Okay, sorry.
Let me, Victor, think about the answer. I'll let you, Victor, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, of
Okay.
course.
So let's answer maybe first, and then we'll go back to you,
Okay,
Thiago, if you
perfect.
don't mind.
Okay.
Perfect.
You can apply to different grants for the same program, but the $1 cannot be funded 2 times by 2 different grants.
In other words, there's nothing wrong that you can apply to 3, 4, 5 grants at the same time, but if you're accepted to 2, then you may have to make a choice, or you may have to declare to one grant provider that you receive the grants from another. So you can definitely, to increase your chances, apply to several grants at the same time. Now, the challenge, it can be expensive to prepare the grant if the chance is low. It's possible.
You couldn't receive the money for two times for the same expenses, but in a project you can have different expenses and apply to different grants for different part of the project.
Okay,
Also,
perfect.
yes.
Yeah, I got it. The second one is, since we are like in a startup, we didn't go to market yet. We are like developing. Is this kind of situation also applied for SR&ED or just for companies that already have like some history like on the market?
Victor, would you like to go with this one too?
Okay. As Pierre told you, if you are eligible with the criteria that Pierre was explaining, and if you have expenses, you can be eligible to SR&ED, even if you don't sell anything.
Okay, perfect.
An
Thank you so
interesting
much.
question. An interesting question also is sometimes startups say, well, I don't make profits, so I mean, I cannot get grants. Because the grants or the tax credits will require me to be profitable. But actually, no, it's not a criteria. You have to have expenses in the case of tax credits. And in the case of grants, you have to have money first to do the first steps of the grants. And this is something which is counterintuitive. People sometimes come to us and they tell us, and you can see how special that is. It's funny how it is. Somebody says, oh, I have a great idea. I don't have a company. I don't have employees. I don't have salaries, but I would like to have $500,000 in grants. Can you do that for me? And then the answer is yes, if you have $1 million in the bank. Because grants are refunds. You very rarely receive money upfront. CanExpo will do that. They will give you half the grant when you're qualified, but you must spend the money first before you actually get the grant and you're at the rest of that grant. So you have to have money. So in that sense, you have to be able to complement and increase the amount you receive with your own money.
Thank you, guys. So we got to 10:30, so 1 hour session. So thank you again, Pierre, Victor, and everyone from Emergex team to be here today and share all your knowledge with our companies. And thank you all for coming. If you have any question, please send me an email. I'll be happy to connect you with the Emergex team. And as I mentioned before, so the presentation will be shared by a link in our Google Drive and so on, so you can rewatch it to get anything that you lose in the process. Okay, guys? Thank you so much and have an amazing day ahead.